You are standing at a threshold. It is somewhere in early America. The exact address does not matter. A cabin in the Pine Barrens, a farmhouse on the Red River, a clapboard house on a Rhode Island lane that will not appear on a map for another 60 years. The door is open. The light inside is the color of tallow. The smell is wood, smoke, and iron, and something underneath that you do not want to name. You step inside. There is no one in the room. There should be. This is how the first American urban legends actually began. Not around a campfire, not in a paperback. They began in rooms exactly like this one, when somebody walked through a door expecting to find their wife at the loom, their daughter at the hearth, their son in the bed where they left him, and found instead the absence of all of those things and could not explain it. So they made something up. You have been told these stories before. You have been told them wrong. The version you grew up with has been laundered. The Headless Horseman has been turned into a holiday cartoon. The Witches of Salem have been turned into a souvenir economy with a parking problem. The vampires have been turned into a publishing genre worth $1 billion and counting. Every monster this country was born with has been dragged into the gift shop and given a price tag and a stuffed plush version for the kids. That is not what we are doing here. In the next 40 minutes, you are going to meet 3 of the first urban legends America ever produced. They are real. The people in them have real names, real graves, real surviving court depositions, real newspaper clippings, real almanac feuds. And every one of them is worse than the polished version you were sold. The first is a creature said to have been born in a Burlington County cabin in 1735 to a woman with 12 children already and a 13th on the way. You have heard about the curse, the storm, the chimney. You have not heard about Benjamin Franklin and what Benjamin Franklin printed about that family for sport, and what a printed lie can grow into when it is repeated often enough in country empty enough. The second is a voice that lived in the walls of a Tennessee farmhouse between 1817 and 1821. You have heard the haunting. You have not heard about the girl at the center of it, 12 years old, what was being arranged for her under that roof, and what the adults around her decided to call her terror, because the alternative was a word the English language would not bother to invent for another century and a half. The third is a girl who died of tuberculosis in January 1892. You have heard she was a vampire. You have not heard about the flat rock at the edge of a Rhode Island cemetery, what was burned on it, or what her father carried home in a glass and made his dying son drink. Here is the thesis. You can carve it over the door of every haunted house in America. The first urban legends in this country were not invented to scare you. They were invented to spare the people telling them from saying out loud what had actually happened inside their homes. The monsters were the merciful version. The truth was the thing that needed a costume. If that is the kind of history you came here for, the unedited kind, the kind that does not flinch and does not sell a stuffed plush, then subscribe to The Dark Ledge before we open the first door. Because once we step inside, you are not walking back out the same way you came in. Open the first door. You are in Burlington County, New Jersey, in the autumn of 1735. The colony is 120 years old. The country it will eventually become does not yet have a name. The wilderness in front of you does. The locals call it the Pine Barrens, and it deserves the name. Picture over 1 million acres of stunted pitch pine and scrub oak growing out of sand the color of bone. The water under that sand is the color of strong tea, stained by cedar root, acidic enough to preserve a wooden boat for 200 years and a body considerably longer. The trees do not grow tall here. They grow stubborn. Stand still in the Pine Barrens at dusk, and you can hear 3 things: wind, your own breathing, and the absence of every other sound a forest is supposed to make. There are no songbirds at that hour. There never really were. This is the country where the first American monster was about to be born. Her name was Deborah Leeds. That is a real name On real church records, married to a real man named Japhet Leeds in a real meeting house. She had given birth to 12 children already by the time the legend places her in the cabin that night. She was tired in a way modern English does not have a word for, and the story says she was pregnant with a 13th. The story says there was a storm. The story says she was past patience. The story says she looked down at her own belly and spoke a sentence she would spend eternity wishing she could take back. Let this one be the devil. The child was born, the story says. The midwives leaned in, and the thing on the bed was not a baby anymore. It had wings like a bat, a head like a goat, a forked tail, a scream like a man being burned. It killed the midwife. Then it killed a child in the next room. Then it went up the chimney like smoke that hated you personally, and it disappeared into the pine barrens, and it never came back inside. That is the story. That is also a lie. You will notice that the lie is much easier to swallow than the truth. That is what lies are for. Here is the truth. The Leeds family was real. Pull the colonial records, and you can stand on their property line right now. The man at the center of the legend is not a poor cursing wife. The man at the center of the legend is Daniel Leeds, the grandfather, and Daniel Leeds had a problem. He had been a Quaker. Then he stopped being one. He started publishing almanacs, the kind with astrological charts in them, planetary movements, predictions, the exact kind of thing a 1690s Quaker meeting was firmly against. The Society of Friends printed pamphlets calling him exactly what you would expect them to call him, Satan's harbinger, a man writing the devil's calendar. The Leeds family crest, the one stamped on those almanacs, featured 3 wyverns. Look up a wyvern. Clawed feet, bat wings, forked tail. The silhouette is going to look very familiar. Then Daniel died, and his son Titan kept publishing the almanac. And Titan had a problem of his own. His name was Benjamin Franklin. Franklin was running a competing almanac out of Philadelphia. He was a younger, hungrier, funnier writer with a sharper market instinct. So he did what younger, funnier writers with sharper market instincts do. He went after his competition in print. He predicted the exact date Titan Leeds would die. Titan did not die that day. So Franklin announced that Titan must therefore be a ghost, still writing the Leeds Almanac from beyond the grave, and he kept that joke running for years in front of every literate household in the colonies. When Titan actually did die a few years later, Franklin printed a smug little memorial congratulating the ghost on finally giving up the act. You are watching the founding father of American electricity invent the founding father of American influencer beef. He probably did not know what he was doing. The Leeds family knew exactly what he was doing. By the time the next generation of farmers in Burlington County started swapping stories about a winged thing in the woods, the name attached to the thing was Leeds, and nobody outside the family could quite explain why. The myth had eaten the slander, digested it, and grown wings on it. A real family. A real woman with 12 children. A real almanac. A real publishing war. And the residue is a creature. The creature does not care that you know the truth. Skip forward to the 3rd week of January, 1909, and you can watch a state lose its mind. Newspapers across Trenton, Camden, Bristol, and Philadelphia begin printing the same thing on the same day. People are seeing it. People are hearing it. Cloven prints appear on snowy rooftops in the middle of cities. Prints walk up a wall, across a roof, and end, as if something stepped off the world. A trolley in Haddon Heights is attacked. A poultry farm in Bristol loses its birds in a single night, every one of them, in ways that do not look like a fox. By the end of the week, schools have closed, factories have shut down, and posies with rifles are walking the pine barrens in groups large enough to be mistaken for an army. The thing they are hunting was invented by a Philadelphia printer to sell almanacs. It does not matter. It is out there now, and they know it. The dry truth is this: the pine barrens are still 1,000,000 acres. you can still get lost in them today. In 2026, in a car with a phone, in under 20 minutes of driving, the silence under those pines did not change. The acid water did not change. Whatever the Leeds family was accused of putting in that forest, the forest accepted and the forest kept, and the forest is still keeping. The worst part is not that something might actually live out there. The worst part is that we know exactly how it got there. We have the receipts, we have the almanacs, we have Franklin's own printed mockery, dated and signed. We can name the libel, we can name the libelers, and we still cannot stop the story. America's first urban legend is the proof that a country built on cheap printing presses figured out very early that a slander told often enough in country, empty enough does not need a body to start leaving footprints. Pause with me for 1 second before we step out of these woods, because the next door we open is worse and I need you focused. If the Leeds family could be turned into a monster in print for the price of a competing almanac in 1735, what exactly is stopping it from happening to your family name tomorrow? Who in your life, right now, would defend the spelling of your last name 100 years from now? Name them in the comments. Be specific. First name only is fine. And if you want this channel to keep dragging real history out of the woods where the gift shops have been hiding it, hit that like button. Feed the algorithm with real history, not the laundered kind. The Leeds family, wherever they are, would have appreciated the help. Nobody else gave it to them. All right, lock that comment. We are walking out of the Pine Barrens now, and we are going south. You are in Adams, Tennessee, on the Red River, in the autumn of 1817. The country has a name now. The frontier does not. Tennessee is a state on a map and a problem in practice. The roads are mud. The neighbors are far. The closest town worth the trip is Springfield, and Springfield is barely a town. This is the kind of country where if something is going to happen to you under your own roof, it is going to happen with nobody close enough to either help you or tell the story right. It is going to happen to a man named John Bell, and it is going to last 4 years. John Bell is not the kind of victim a haunting normally picks. He is not a drifter. He is not a drunk. He is the most respectable man on his road. He owns over 300 acres of good land. He is a deacon of the Red River Baptist Church. He keeps slaves, which is its own conversation, and we are not going to soften that part of him on this channel. He is, by every measurable standard of his county in 1817, a man with nothing to fear. By December of 1820, he will be dead in his own bed. There will be a small vial of dark, unknown liquid on the shelf above him. His family will swear in writing that they know exactly who killed him, and the killer they name will not have a body anyone can hang. It starts in the field. John Bell, walking his own corn, sees a creature he cannot name, the body of a dog, the head of something wrong. He raises his rifle, he fires, he hits it. The thing turns and looks at him and walks away unhurried into the trees. He goes back the next morning to find the rifle ball, and the rifle ball's not there. Neither is any blood. Neither is anything he could put in a letter. A week later, his oldest son sees a black bird the size of a child sitting on a fence post. The bird does not fly when approached. It waits to be looked at, then it goes. This is phase 1. The field. Phase 2 is the walls. The Bells start hearing knocking from inside the logs of the cabin. The knocking moves. They walk into the parlor, and it is in the bedroom. They walk into the bedroom, and it is in the kitchen. The knocking is always one wall ahead of them, the way a deer is always one tree ahead of you in country you do not know. The dog stops sleeping in the house. The slaves on the property, who have their own theories and are not consulted, start sleeping further from the main building. The smell of something burning enters the house at night, and there is nothing burning, and the smell does not leave with the dawn. Phase 3 is the voice. It starts as breathing. The Bell family lies awake at night and hears something breathing in the room that is not them. Then the breathing learns words. Then the words become a voice. The voice is female. It quotes scripture. It quotes the sermons preached at the Red River Baptist Church that very morning, word for word, before the family has had time to discuss them at supper. It sings hymns in harmony with itself, 4 voices coming out of empty air at once, every part on key. It introduces itself differently to different visitors. Sometimes it is Kate. Sometimes it claims to be the witch of an old neighbor named Kate Batts, who is alive, very alive, and not at all amused to learn a ghost has stolen her name. Sometimes it claims to be the spirit of a person buried somewhere in the Bell family field. The story changes, the voice does not. The voice has a favorite target. Her name is Betsy Bell. She is 12 years old. Whatever lives in that house follows Betsy room to room. Witnesses come from miles to watch her get slapped by nothing. They count the welts. They watch her hair lift off her shoulders and stand straight up and then get yanked hard by a hand that does not exist. They watch blankets pull themselves off her bed at night. They watch pins arrange themselves under her sheets. They watch a small, invisible dog walk up and down the foot of her mattress, every paw making a real impression, every paw audible. The county comes to gawk. The county does not help. By 1819, the haunting is famous enough that Andrew Jackson, future 7th President of the United States, allegedly loads a wagon with skeptical friends and rides out from Nashville to disprove it. The wagon wheels lock on the Bell property line. The horses refuse. Something laughs at the group from the tree line by name. Jackson, the story goes, leaves before dawn and tells his friends he would rather fight the British at New Orleans again than spend another night under that roof. Whether you believe the Jackson story or not is up to you. Whether the Bells believed it is on the record. They believed it. They needed to. In December 1820, John Bell is found unconscious in his bed. There is a small vial of dark unknown liquid above him. The family tests a drop of it on the family cat. The cat dies in minutes. John Bell dies a few hours later. The voice, the family, later swears in writing, laughs out loud at the funeral and sings a drinking song over the grave. The dry truth is that nobody in the room knew what was in that vial, and nobody since has been able to say. It might have been the spirit, it might have been arsenic. The two would have looked exactly the same from John Bell's bed, and here is where we put the lights on. Almost every dramatic detail in the version of this story you have ever heard comes from a single book. It is called An Authenticated History of the Bell Witch. It was published in 1894, 73 years after John Bell was buried, by a journalist named Martin Van Buren Ingram. Ingram was not there. His main written source, an old manuscript supposedly authored by Richard Williams Bell, is attributed to a man who had been 6 years old at the time of the haunting and wrote his account down decades after the fact. The famous claim that a Tennessee court of law once ruled on record that a spirit had committed murder is folklore. There is no such ruling in any surviving court document. People repeat it because it is satisfying. It is not true. So what actually happened in that house? Pull the human shape out of the legend and look at it. You have a 12-year-old girl. Her name is Betsy. She lives in an isolated farmhouse with a father who controls her, a household that watches her, and a community that will believe anything an adult man says about her body before they will believe her. She is being courted by a much older man named Joshua Gardner. Her father has decided Joshua Gardner is not going to be the husband. Every disturbance in the house happens around Betsy. Every welt is on Betsy. Every slap is on Betsy. After her father dies, Betsy breaks the engagement with Joshua Gardner anyway. She marries someone else. She lives another 70 years. She refuses, for the rest of her life, to tell anyone what really happened in that house. You can read that any number of ways. None of the ways are comfortable. The dry truth is this. America in 1820 did not have the word gaslighting. America in 1820 did not have the word grooming. America in 1820 did not have any vocabulary at all. May 1820, may controlling, matey, make haze. mating 20 between a controlling father and a much older suitor in a house where every adult had already decided her terror must be supernatural. America in 1820 had one word available for what was happening in that bedroom, and the word was witch, and that is the word the Bell family reached for, and it is the word their county reached back with. The ghost was the more flattering interpretation, but the Bells, for everything they went through under that roof, still had a roof. They still had each other. They still had a body in the ground to mourn. Some American families, 70 years later, in a state with paved streets and electric streetlights and morning newspapers, could not afford even that mercy. In a Rhode Island cemetery in the deepest cold of January 1892, a grieving father is about to be handed a shovel by his neighbors. And what they are about to ask him to do to his daughter's body is the part of American history the gift shops will never, ever sell you. The father's name is George Brown. Hold that name in your mouth. We are going to need it. You are in Exeter, Rhode Island in early 1892. The country has electricity now. The country has telephones. The country has a transcontinental railroad and Ellis Island and morning newspapers delivered before breakfast. James Naismith invented basketball 6 weeks ago. Tchaikovsky is premiering The Nutcracker in St. Petersburg this Christmas. This is not the Middle Ages. This is not your grandmother's century. This is by every modern measure the modern world. It is also the year George Brown of Chestnut Hill Road is about to be talked into something by his neighbors. George Brown is a farmer. He is not stupid. He is not poor. He is not particularly religious in the way that gets people in trouble in folk stories. He is by 1892 the last surviving adult man in his family, and that is the only credential the disease has been looking for. Consumption, that is what they called it. We call it tuberculosis. The Brown family has been swallowed by it, slowly, in sequence, the way a careful hand picks fruit off a low branch. Mary Eliza Brown, the wife and mother, dies of consumption in 1883. Mary Olive Brown, the eldest daughter, dies of consumption in 1884. Edwin Brown, the son, gets it next. The family sends him to Colorado Springs because the doctors say the dry mountain air is the only thing that has ever helped anyone. He stays out west for years. The dry air does not help him. He comes home to Exeter in late 1891 to die where he was born. While he is dying, his sister Mercy Lena Brown, 19 years old, catches it from him. She dies in late January 1892. The ground in Rhode Island is frozen iron at that point in the winter. They cannot dig her a grave. They put her body in an above-ground stone vault at Chestnut Hill Cemetery to wait for the thaw. That is when the neighbors come to talk to George. Here is what the neighbors believe. They believe that when an entire family is being eaten by consumption, one member at a time, in clear sequence, mother first, then eldest daughter, then the next, then the next, the simplest explanation is that one of the dead is not actually dead. One of them is rising at night. One of them is feeding on whoever is left. To save Edwin, who is still alive in the upstairs bedroom, coughing himself apart, you have to find the dead family member who is doing it. You have to identify her. You have to cut out the heart. You have to burn it. You have to feed the ashes to the sick boy. The neighbors are not lunatics. They are farmers. They have read the same Bible George reads. They have voted in the same elections. They are him with shovels. George refuses. They keep talking to him. They keep talking to him for weeks. He breaks. The 17th of March, 1892, Chestnut Hill Cemetery. There is still snow on the ground. There is a doctor present, a real one, a man named Harold Metcalf, who has been asked to attend in a professional capacity and who will tell the Providence Journal afterward that he believed none of what was about to be done and could not stop any of it. They open the grave of Mary Eliza. Mother, dead 9 years. Bones! They open the grave of Mary Olive, eldest daughter, dead 8 years. Bones with hair grown long around the skull the way hair appears to keep growing after death, which is actually skin receding. Bones. Then they walk to the stone vault. They open the door. They open Mercy Lena Brown's coffin. Mercy has been dead 2 months in a stone room through the coldest part of a Rhode Island winter. The cold has done exactly what cold does. The body is still recognizable. The face is still her face. To the men standing in the snow holding lanterns, that is the proof. The dry truth is this. They had no concept of refrigeration as a chemical process. They had no concept of postmortem decomposition rates. They had a frozen girl in a frozen room and a folk theory that needed her to be guilty, and the cold gave them exactly the verdict the folk theory required. They open her. They cut out her heart. They cut out her liver. There is liquid blood in the heart. They do not know that postmortem chemistry produces liquid blood for weeks under the right conditions. They know what their grandfathers told them blood in a dead heart meant. It meant she was the one. They carry the organs out to a flat rock at the edge of the cemetery. There is a particular rock. You can see what is left of it today. They build a fire on the rock. They burn her heart on it. They burn her liver on it. The smell of that fire is on the historical record because the doctor reported it. It is not a smell you want me to describe to you. They scrape the ashes off the rock into a container. They carry it home. They mix the ashes with water. They make Edwin, the dying brother, drink it. Edwin drinks it. Edwin dies on the 2nd of May, 1892, 54 days later. The dry truth is that this happened in the same calendar year as the first basketball game. America was not, on this date, struggling out of medieval ignorance. America was, on this date, exactly the same country that was about to re-elect Grover Cleveland and put on the Chicago World's Fair. Mercy Brown was burned to a paste while Edison was lighting Manhattan. The other dry truth is this. There were not 3 exhumations like this in New England. There were over 80 documented ones, scattered from Connecticut up through Vermont, going back nearly a century. This was not one strange village having one strange night. This was a regional folk medicine practice that an industrializing country could not quite shake out of its rural bones. And then the story leaves Rhode Island. A reporter from the Providence Journal files the piece. The New York World picks it up. The clipping travels east, across the Atlantic, into the research drawer of an Irish theater manager who writes ghost stories in his spare time. 5 years later, in 1897, an author named Bram Stoker publishes a novel called Dracula. His research papers, examined after his death, contain clippings about Mercy Brown. Mercy Lena Brown, 19 years old, dead of tuberculosis in her father's house in 1892, is the loose template for the most lucrative monster in publishing history. She was not asked. The estate did not collect. Walk into Chestnut Hill Cemetery today, and you can find her grave. There is an iron cage built around the headstone. The cage was not put there to keep her in. The cage was put there because tourists, modern tourists, you and me and everyone watching, kept trying to chip pieces off the stone to take home as souvenirs. The legend is still feeding on her. We never stopped. Quick pause. 15 seconds. If you are still here. If you are still watching after what we just walked you through in that cemetery, hit the like button right now. 1 tap. That is all. It tells this channel you are the kind of viewer who can take it, because we are about to enter the darkest part of this story. Not the part with the shovels, not the part with the rock at the edge of the field, the part that ties all 3 of these legends together. The part that explains, finally, why the country that built them needed them so badly that it never let them die. Take a breath, then come back. Take that breath. Welcome back. You walked into this video at a threshold, cold doorway, tallow light, wood smoke and iron, and something underneath you did not want to name. 1 set of footprints leading in, none leading out. You have a different reading of that doorway now. Pull the camera up. New Jersey, 1,735. Tennessee, 1,820. Rhode Island, 1,892. 3 rooms, 3 families. 157 years between the first cabin and the last cemetery. The lighting changes. The technology changes. The wallpaper changes. The pattern does not. In every one of those rooms, somebody real was destroyed. And in every one of those rooms, the people standing around the body reached for a monster instead of a mirror. The Leeds family did not produce a winged thing out of a 13th pregnancy. They produced an almanac that a more famous printer wanted out of the market. The thing in the woods was the mercy. The libel was the truth. Betsy Bell was not haunted by Kate the witch. She was a 12-year-old girl in a house full of grown men who had already decided what her body was going to be used for, and her county needed a ghost story because the county did not have the vocabulary or the courage to call what was happening by its real name. The witch was the mercy. The arrangement was the truth. Mercy Brown was not a vampire. She was a 19-year-old girl who died of tuberculosis on a Tuesday in January, and her father was talked into something in a snowy cemetery because the alternative was admitting that medicine could not save his children and neither could love. The vampire was the mercy. The disease was the truth. This is the real Bill from the Wild West. Not the gunfighters, not the cattle drives, not the saloon doors. The gift shops still sell back to you with a sepia filter. The real Bill is the cost of building a country and country too empty for witnesses, on land too far from the next neighbor to overhear what was actually being done inside the cabin. The frontier did not produce monsters. The frontier produced privacy. And privacy, on this continent, has always been the cover charge for everything we did not want to say out loud. The Pine Barrens absorbed a slander and grew it teeth. A Tennessee farmhouse absorbed a girl and called what came out of her a ghost. A Rhode Island cemetery absorbed a dead daughter and burned her on a rock because the living needed somebody to be guilty of the air they were all breathing. 3 doors, 3 families, 1 country, 1 excuse. So go back to that threshold one more time. The cold doorway, the tallow light, the single set of footprints leading in. Nothing ever came out of that room. Something stayed inside. We named it. We have been telling its story ever since, so we would never have to tell our own. If you made it this far, comment the exact words "survived" below. 1 word, all capitals. We read every single one of them on this channel, and we are keeping count of who walked out of these woods with us. And subscribe to The Dark Ledge before the next episode goes live. The next door we open is uglier than this one. The country has a lot more rooms. Welcome to the real history.